If you liked the video, feel free to subscribe. It would really help the channel, and we have battle reports, boarding actions, and list videos every week. Thanks for watching. Thanks for stopping by. This video will be going over a 2,000 point Shield Host competitive list. This list, unlike the last Shield Host list, does have some ranged anti-tank. The list does have units of Wardens and Valerian in it as well. A good amount of scoring and utility units to help score well in games. I will go over how the Shield Host detachment benefits this list with a full breakdown of each unit and a rough game plan for the list. Quickly go through the Adeptus Custodes Army rule along with the Shield Host detachment rule. The Army rule is Martial Kata. Each time a unit from your army with this ability is selected to fight, select one of the Kata stances. Until that unit has finished making its attacks, the selected stance is active for it and it gains the relevant ability. Dakatari stance, melee weapons equipped by models have the Sustained Hits 1 ability, or Rendak stance, melee weapons equipped by models have the Lethal Hits ability. A great army rule to boost our melee damage potential: if we'll be wounding on a 4+ or less, pick Sustained 1, if it's 5 or 6s, pick Lethal Hits. The Shield Host detachment rule is called Martial Mastery. At the start of the battle round, you can select one of the bullet points below. If you do so until the start of the next battle round, that bullet point effects apply. So you could have each Adeptus Custodes model with the Martial Kata ability, melee weapons gain the critical hits on 5's ability, or you could have each Adeptus model with the Martial Kata ability, melee weapons gain +1 AP. And this can really boost the melee damage of our army. And here is the list. I've named this list the Watchers of the Throne. It comes to 2,000 points. Warlord is Valerian. Our two characters, we have a Bladechampion with a Panopta Specs enhancement and a Bladechampion with no enhancements. For our battle line, we have a unit of 4 Custodian Guard, 3 with the Spears, and 1 with the Vexilla and Shield. Then we have a unit of 5 Custodian Guard, all with the Guardian Spears. For our other data sheets, we have 2 Caladius Grav-tanks, both with the Twin Arachnus Heavy Blaze Cannons, 2 5-man units of Wardens, both with the Guardian Spears and Vexilla. We have a unit of 4 Witchseekers. And then for our allied units, we have a Callidus Assassin, Inquisitor Draxus to go with those 4 Custodian Guard, and a Subductor Squad. And this list comes to 2,000 points exactly. Let's touch on the 1 enhancement in the list and the 6 stratagems for the Shield Host. The enhancement on the 1 Bladechampion is Panopta Specs. While a bearer is leading a unit, ranged weapons equipped by models in that unit have the Ignores Cover ability. And that's going to be on the Bladechampion attached to some Custodian Guard. Now for our 6 stratagems. The first one is an important one: Arcane Genetic Alchemy for 1 CP, any phase, Adeptus Custodes model. Until the end of the phase, models in your unit have the 4+ Feel No Pain ability against mortal wounds. And that one is powerful since you can wait until the mortal wounds have been allocated before you use it. So if it's 2 mortal wounds, you may not want to waste the CP, but if it's 6 or 7 mortal wounds, 1 CP for a 4 Feel No Pain will be worth it. Next up is a strong one in certain situations: Archaeotech Munitions for 1 CP. In your shooting phase, select either Lethal Hits or Sustained Hits 1 ability. Until the end of the phase, ranged weapons equipped by models in your unit have the selected ability. Next up is Avenge the Fallen. I don't use this that much. It is situational. You can get some extra damage. It's for 1 CP, the start of the fight phase, 1 Adeptus Custodes unit from your army that is below starting strength. Until the end of the phase, add 1 to the attack characteristic of melee weapons equipped by models in your unit. If your unit is below half strength, until the end of the phase, add 2 to the attack characteristic of those melee weapons instead. So yes, you can boost the damage, but you only usually have 5-man units, so time you're below half strength. The 2 extra attacks are nice, but you just don't have that much of a unit left, and usually it's not worth the 1 CP. Next up is Multi-Potentiality for 1 CP, and this is another good one. It is Fall Back, Shoot, and Charge. Unwavering Sentinels for 1 CP. In the fight phase, you have to be on an objective marker that we control, and it is -1 to the enemy's melee attacks against that unit. It can be good on the Wardens, it can be good if you're trying to defend objective from a charge, but we used to have this as a kata, so using 1 CP instead of the kata still is a little feels bad. Last up is Vigilance Eternal for 1 CP. You have to use this in their movement phase, and it has to be used with a battle line unit, which is only the Custodian Guard, since that is our only battle line. And what this does is sticky an objective. Now for the unit breakdown. We'll start with Valerian, our Warlord. He is going to be joined with 5 Wardens. Valerian can be opponent situational. He really shines when playing against melee heavy units. That gives -1 AP to incoming melee attacks, combined with the Wardens, makes this a very hard unit to take out with melee. We can also use Unwavering Sentinels for 1 CP if the unit is on objective we control, to give incoming melee attacks -1 to the hit roll. Valerian, along with the Blade Champions, have the only melee attacks with AP 3. The Warden's Guardian Spears are only AP 2. It helps against those vehicles and monster units with a 2+ save. Martial Mastery can bring them up to AP 4 if we need it. Arcane Genetic Alchemy for 1 CP protects us from large amounts of mortal wounds. Ranged attacks will be how the opponent will try to take this unit out. We want to force the enemy into melee fights with this unit when we can, to activate that -1 AP in the fight phase. I like to have this unit in the center objective to force the enemy to engage with this unit. I may use the Witchseekers to go grab a early aerial denial or secure no man's land secondary. That way this unit is not being targeted by ranged attacks turn 1. We want to force an enemy into melee combat with this unit, even if they charge us. Use the Wardens once per game for Feel No Pain. It will be very hard to wipe this unit, let alone survive the attack back. Martial Mastery can make the Wardens extra deadly. They do not get reroll the wound roll. Critical hits on 5s helps makes them more killy and reliable to kill most units besides tough tanky units. This unit, like most of the units in this army, will truly appreciate having a fallback, shoot and charge stratagem. With multi-potentiality for 1 CP, this unit is devastating to orcs, since a lot of their melee attacks are only AP 1, which will bring them down to AP 0. We'll be saving on 2s if you pop that 4 Feel No Pain. World Eaters also hate Valerian paired with Wardens, because it'll bring a lot of their weapons down to AP 1 and their chain blades down to AP 0. Valerian also has a second ability that he can change a hit, damage, or wound or save to a 6. It's good to save that when it's just him by himself, just to make him annoying, making him stick around, change a save to a 6, and it does make him stick around a little bit longer, maybe getting an extra turn of damage through with him. Next up is the Blade Champion with 5 Wardens. This Blade Champion has no enhancements, just pure once per game advance and charge threat. This unit will not have the same range threat or hit as hard as the Blade Champion Custodian Guard unit, but they are much harder to kill. The Resolute Will ability, making them -1 to the wound roll if the attack strength is higher than the Warden's toughness 6, will really help keep them on the board longer than a Custodian Guard unit. This will be a primary unit, meaning a unit we will use to hold objectives for primary points. The Wardens can be very hard to knock off objectives when we stack a few rules to improve their survivability. The Blade Champion will give this unit some extra threat in melee, critical hits on 5 with sustained 1, and then damage 3 devastating wounds. These Blade Champions can spike, doing a scary amount of damage. Next up, and if you've watched my How to Build a Custodes list, this is an attack unit, the Blade Champion with 5 Custodian Guard. I did have 4 Wardens in this unit at first. I wanted to have 1 unit in the list that had some serious melee threat. I could take 5 Alar's Terminators, but I like having the option to rapid ingress this unit and then advance and charge it. It gives us a much larger threat range. The Blade Champion has the Panopta Specs enhancement that has less synergy with the Wardens. The Custodian Guard's 2 abilities pair great with Ignore Cover on ranged attacks. Sentinel Storm to shoot twice once per game, and Stand Vigil for reroll the wound roll of 1 or reroll the wound roll if a unit is on a controlled objective. So you're shooting, you're ignoring cover, rerolling your wound roll. You can do some good damage with these things. The 2 abilities pair very well with this Blade Champion, even giving the Blade Champion reroll the wound roll to fish for those devastating wounds. The unit will have 12 shots, hitting on 2s, strength 4, AP 1, damage 2, now ignoring cover from the Blade Champion enhancement, with a possible reroll the wound roll and the ability to shoot twice once per game. This will make a potent unit shooting into light infantry targets. In fact, it will be the hardest hitting melee unit in the list. I like to start this unit in Deep Strike to have that rapid ingress threat. It does give us 2 units to use sticky objectives with the Vigilance Eternal 1 CP stratagem, another unit that loves multi-potentiality for fallback, shoot, and charge. Even more so with the improved shooting of this unit, you can give this unit sustained hits 1 or lethal hits with the Arcutech munition stratagem. Now let's talk about Draxus attached to Custodian Guard with the Vexilla, my auto-include unit for most of my list. This unit is an anti-infantry nightmare. Draxus plus Custodian Guard is one if not the best combinations for Kyria Draxus in all of 10th edition. The Custodian Guard have 2 abilities that makes Draxus shine. Stand Vigil for those reroll wound rolls of 1, or reroll the wound roll if on objective they control. Sentinel Storm once per game, this unit can shoot twice in the shooting phase. Draxus has 2 ranged attacks, her Dirge Singer, which is Assault, Anti-Infantry 4, Devastating Wounds, 4 shots, hitting on 3s, 2s if your target is a Xenos, Strength 4, AP 0, Damage 2. Then we have the Psychic Tempest, Sustain hits 2, 6 shots, hit on 3s, once again 2s if you're targeting a Xenos unit, Strength 6, AP 0, Damage 2, both with a range of 18. When we combine all of these things together, we get a unit that is made to kill infantry units. You want to be shooting this unit when they are on objective they control. This brings up the anti-infantry potential by so much, allowing us to reroll any of her Dirge Singer wound rolls to fish for those devastating wounds on 4s. Then if we need to, we can shoot twice per game, allowing her to shoot both her range attack profiles again. This can rip apart all but the most powerful infantry units. On to our ranged anti-tank, 2 Caladius Grav-tanks. These 2 Grav-tanks will provide some good anti-tank shooting. I like to bring 2 to make our anti-tank a bit more reliable. D6 plus 2 can be swingy. 2 of these tanks can usually take out 1 to 2 monsters per turn. The Blaze Cannons have lethal hits into monsters and vehicles, 4 shots, hitting on 2s, Strength 12, AP 3, Damage D6 plus 2 with Twin Linked. These things can power up and do insane amounts of damage, or disappointing amounts of damage. It all depends on those D6 rolls. Toughness 11 makes them able to be wounded on a 3+ by las cannons and other Strength 12 weapons. It does have a 5+ invulnerable save, but with a 2+ save, the attacks need to be AP 4 to get our save up to a 6+, making that 5+ invulnerable save come into play, or AP 5 if the Grav-tank has cover. It is nice to have against those weapons that do have that high AP, but those weapons are rare. Blaze Cannons equipped, we get lethal hits into monster and vehicle units along with Twin Linked, making them very reliable to hit and wound. It's just getting the damage to convert with the opponent's saves and the D6 plus 2 damage. Movement of 10 with the fly keyword does give them some good movement options. We want them lurking in our backfield to screen enemy deep strikes or reserves. After the anti-tank threats and threats to our home objective have been dealt with, we can start pushing these up to do secondary actions or hold objectives. Using these Caladius for utility as well as range damage will get the most out of these Grav-tanks by freeing up our infantry units to do other things during the game. So you don't want these always sitting in the back shooting. Once you get some of the threats down, you can start pushing these up the board some. Only 1 unit of Witchseekers in this list, but with a 6-inch scope move, they will make a great unit for turn 1 secondary actions. They can cause battle shock tests for 1 enemy hit by their torrent flamers as well. Also a good unit for screening turn 1 charges. They have a 3+ save, which can make them harder to kill with small arms fire than it would seem for a cheap chaff unit. Another one of our allies is going to be a Callidus Assassin. I think the Callidus is still the best assassin for Custodes, even more so with the new points. The Evisor has some big turn 1 charge threat, but melee damage is not something the Adeptus Custodes lack. She can now fall back out of combat at the end of the opponent's turn. Her up and down ability is still fantastic for scoring secondary points. Her 12-inch aura that adds 1 CP cost of any stratagem on any enemy units within 12 inches of that Callidus Assassin. We can use her to help our army be aggressive, especially when the opponent only has 1 CP. Drop her within 12 inches of some important targets. Those enemy units will not have enough CP to use any stratagems, which against another melee army with fight on death or fights first stratagems can really be a difference between losing unit and losing nothing. Another one of our allied units, the Subductor Squad. This unit is 85 points, more expensive than a small Prosecutor's unit, but it has a lot more utility. It is 11 models, including the Mastiff, that we can use to hold our home objective while strung out to screen our backline. We can also use it to screen charges by having them strung out as far possible across the board as we can. What makes them great for this is the 4+ invulnerable save they have. It makes them really hard to take out without dedicated shooting, even more so if the opponent has a lot of low number shots with high damage shooting. This unit combined with the 2 Caladius in our backlines will help keep our home objective safe, which can be a weakness of ours. 4 or 5 Prosecutor models just isn't enough to keep our home objective safe some games. This unit should at least make it much safer, even soaking some of that shooting instead of our Custodian infantry if we are lucky. The game plan for this list: the Subductor Squad with the 2 tanks should make a good screen for our backlines. We can use the Draxus unit to sticky objectives if the opportunity arises. The Bladechampion with the Custodian Guard can use the Vigilance Eternal stratagem to sticky objectives as well. I want to start the Bladechampion with the Custodian Guard in Deep Strike to have that strong advance in charge, rapid ingress threat. Valerian with his 5 Wardens will hold the center or the most dangerous objective to hold. Even though his ability is a bit more melee opponent dependent, his AP3 will help into those tough monsters and vehicles if they come up. The other Bladechampion with the Wardens will be used to pressure and hold a second objective in no man's land, while the Assassin and Witchseekers do some secondary actions. The tanks can be used for actions too if they have no viable targets left. Now for our final thoughts. I have tested this list a number of times now. I would like to have it on a battle report soon. It has a nice mix of ranged anti-tank with the 2 Caladius Grav-tanks, good primary holding with the 2 units of Wardens. We also have some good melee threat with the 2 units of Custodian Guard, with Draxus able to provide some anti-infantry shooting. The Assassin and Witchseeker unit provide some secondary scoring. The threat of the Caladius tanks will allow our infantry units more opportunity to score secondary points as well. I will cover even more lists over the month of Custober, a few 2,000 points lists for each detachment and some 1,000 points list. Subscribe for more Warhammer content, and like I always say, thanks for watching, thanks for stopping by.